Good evening and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my buddy. I mean, he's just my buddy. That's
my best bud.
Yeah. Jim Stamm, co-host. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, man. I think we got a good show today, and we'll see if we can't close it out good, too. So that's, maybe a hot topic these days in Pirate Land.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I figure we got enough steam to get to the fifth at least, right? That's about where we
yeah,
can
if it falls apart there, everybody that's listening or watching, they're accustomed to it. So it's
absolutely. They expect a slow finish. So first thing I wanted to start with was just something that's been bugging me lately. Really, Jim. I mean, this might be touchy.
I picture you just when you said that rolling out this list of and looking at it. But now, go ahead.
We're definitely going to talk about this baseball team and the struggles, man. I mean, how could you not? That was a brutal week. But the first thing I wanted to talk about might be touchy. It's the use of the word punt. Okay, I've been seeing Dejan doing it a lot, and I just got to tell you, we're not going to bash Dejan here. He's welcome to his opinion and everything. And we're on his network. Let this show serve as proof that he doesn't tell us a damn thing to say. And we're allowed to say and do whatever we like, because I'm going to challenge him a little bit here. The word punt to me felt like instantly angered me, because I don't want to hear that about my team. And I trust him. He has sources. So if he says they're going to punt, I'm thinking that pisses me off.
Sure.
But what does it mean? What does he mean by punt?
Let's just say it's a loaded term. Well,
right.
So
today on his morning shot of Pirates, I heard him kind of define it a little bit, and the definition was basically you might see them go out and get a Roberto Perez. They might go get another Quintana type guy. Probably going to bring in somebody for the bullpen, but they're not going to go out and really raise this payroll next year. And, they're probably going to keep the hitting coach. And I thought to myself for a second, well, that's all the stuff I thought they were going to do. So, I guess I didn't see that as a punt. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I let my bristle get up about the word, but in reality, they're kind of doing what I planned on. So I guess I'm not that irritated if that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what, what's the bar? What's the expectation? I guess would be my first question. I
mean, I've seen him right before, for instance, and again, I'm going to pick on him because he's the one using the word. So, and he's a big boy; he can take care of himself, I'm sure. He's used the phraseology they should spend $100 million next year. Really thinks that. I look at where they are with the roster. I'm not 100% sure where I see that. I actually saw Ethan Houlihan did a really good piece on his website, Pirates Prospects. He wrote what he would do to get up to that $100 million. And it was extending Brian Reynolds, a little free agent here and there. Really doable. I just don't know if I need a number, to in order for me. To me, punt is you decide what Andy Haynes has done is good this year and just decide to keep him. That to me makes me more angry than any of the other things that were mentioned.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. That would probably annoy me as much as anything else. And just going back real quick, it's funny because we get this on social media and stuff. Every once in a while, someone is like, "Oh, you're just a shill for the Pirates," and you take DK's marching orders. And in DK's defense, I've never once had a conversation with him in person DM anything about what we want to do or say on this show. So let's just put that completely to bed, because it's just not accurate. Now, getting back to the word punt, it is a punt, but it was also expected in my frame, in my view.
Right.
And I don't need to see a number over the off season. It'll probably be more of what they do and whether it makes sense when I see it. If it doesn't add up to a certain number on a piece of paper, I don't really care about that aspect of it. Do you? I don't.
They don't have to hit a certain number for me to feel like it's progress.
Yeah.
But I do think there's certain areas where if they leave them dry, I'm not going to be happy. And
Right.
No matter how, for instance, Andy Rodriguez is performing this year, he is. And no matter what they do with his service time next year, which they will manipulate it. It's not something I'd like to see them do, to just go, Andy's going to be our guy, so let's not bother. Heineman and DeLay are okay. We can be okay with them until he comes up. No. To me, that's a mistake. And that's the kind of mistake I'll call them on. That's where I don't want to see them leave holes. I want them to fill things like that. You should have some kind of right-handed veteran option in the outfield. You really should. You should have a good starting pitcher.
Well, and you can certainly go out and find some guys that you might want to put in a bullpen that would hopefully be there past a year.
Sure.
There are guys, if you're looking to where you actually can have some impact on a roster, okay, you can't afford, or you won't spend the money on big name free agent starting pitchers, or there are no real good options other than maybe your Trey Mancini's at first base, and you're not going to spend there. Well, guess where you can go out and do it a little bit. So that's what I would be looking for. They're not planning on competing next year for any type of postseason.
I think that's fair, and I think that's kind of what I was getting to, Jim, is I think we all kind of knew the plan, and I think
so by definition that is a punt, but it's the same punt they've been doing.
I would say because it's an NFL term, really, it's a football term.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should also maybe remember that there are times when punt is the appropriate play. So maybe that's where we should come back and talk. Is punt really the appropriate play here? Let's take a quick break and come back and see. Welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Jim and Gary with you. We're going to pick up our conversation where we left off. We started talking about punt. And I think where we left it, Jim, is a punt appropriate next year? Because to me, the only way that you can go into 2023 punting is if you truly believe that you're going to internally improve next year. Because I do believe even they feel a little bit of pressure to show a little bit of a trend upwards next year. If that's not going to come with payroll and finding people to come in and fill holes, well, there should be a laundry list of people poised to make internal improvement, right? So where is that? Let's look through that a little bit. Let's look through this roster. Where do we see that coming from? Where do we definitely not see it coming from? And that's going to help us understand where the holes are.
Right. And here's the thing. There's to me, you can look at holes or areas of need a couple different ways. Like you can get down to the actual player, maybe the position,
Yep.
maybe infield, outfield. Are we talking about a certain number that you don't like to see as an offense or a defense? So like
Maybe it's even just
can
a shoring up of a certain area.
Yes, so you can build it and think it out however you want. And so as you know, we were getting the show together, I tried to look at it sometimes from a departmentally an aspect, or offensively, what can we do better? Defensively, what can we do better? And sometimes it will be player. So that's kind of how I tried to look at it, instead of just going straight with like, well, we have to get better at first base.
Yeah, you don't want, instead of picking individual players, you want to talk about just areas where they really, really need to focus. And
it's just what I tried to focus on a little bit as we talked about it, because I know we'll go back and forth and kind of go in between those, but I did want to look at it because now we are getting, hey, look, we're near the end of the season. We have big picture stats to look at.
We have big picture stats. We have guys we know are going to have to be moved on from. We know there's guys we got to protect. We know there's a whole list of people ready to come up. There's a whole list of people ready to go away.
Sure.
So, yeah, we should talk about it like that. I think we should start with the pitching staff, Jim, because the pitching staff has never timed up all year. When the starters were going, bullpen wasn't. When the bullpen was going, the starters weren't. And now it's really kind of a mix of a few starters kind of teetering on the edge of doing the best they can, being restricted at the same time, starting to pull back on how many innings you let them go, and the bullpen is just a train wreck. I do think it's important to point out that there's some very important missing members of this bullpen. It's really easy to forget about Colin Holderman. We haven't had him that long, and he's gone. But believe me, he was counted on to be a 7th, 8th, 9th inning guy. You got Yuri De Los Santos. You got David Bednar. The bullpen kind of has a shell. I believe in Will Crow. I think Will Crow has thrown his arm out this year.
Yeah.
But I do believe in a better role for him. He's got a place in this bullpen.
Yeah,
They've
we'll
got
see
the foundation there.
Yeah, we'll see. Next year we'll see. Look, the season can't end soon enough for Will Crow. He just needs to take a breather and regroup.
He needs to pitch a little better too if he's going to continue to be the mouthpiece that defends the team all the time every time somebody attacks them from the outside.
Yeah, and maybe not use him quite as late in games as they've been trying to out of pure need. But you're taking. Look, if you're not going to at least acknowledge that they've had all their high leverage guys kind of out of late inning high leverage guys out of the mix, then you're not going to have an honest conversation about it. Because those are 3 huge pieces, Gary. I mean, huge.
I think I wrote a piece earlier this week, basically looking at the pitching staff as a whole and how it kind of got to this point with the bullpen. If you really think about it, it kind of started with the way that they babied the starting pitching early on in the season, at least in my view. And it created kind of the avalanche that we're watching right now, where everything has fallen off a cliff because the bullpen has just been beaten to hell. And it's injured some of them. It's rendered a lot of them useless. And it's exposed some that maybe would have been okay if you just left them at an inning at a time.
It looked great early on, but you were always worried about what this might look like at the end, right? Hey, great, we have Will Crow in this long relief, and then Dylan Peters, and they had other guys that were coming in and shortening the game for the starters, and hey, that was maybe hiding a little bit of their flaws. You don't have to let them go, but that bill comes due in baseball. I mean, it just does.
That's one thing that I think a lot of people miss in all the math of baseball there's a definitive number of innings minimum you're going to cover in a year. And every team knows what it is. And every team does that math when they count the arms they have to give them those innings.
Yep.
So there's zero chance the Pirates went into this season thinking they had the math to pull it off.
No, not a chance.
Well, okay, but when you go into a season like that, boy, you couldn't possibly define punt any better to me. That is a punt. Knowing I don't have the pitching to get through this marathon and going into it like that and not acquiring any more. I mean, they brought in a reliever that they tried to turn into a starter and then, some waiver guys and whatnot, but that's not a plan. So I would say right there, Jim, 2023, they need a plan. And the depth's going to be a little better from the starting perspective as far as there's more kids on the doorstep than there were this year.
Right.
But you don't want to rely on those kids on the doorstep. You don't. I mean, I really think that's a clear hole. You got to do better than Jared Eichhoff as like that AAA depth veteran. You got to do better than that.
Well, they got kind of lucky with a couple guys. I mean, which is sad when you think about it because they weren't even really counting on those guys. They didn't know what to expect out of Chase. They didn't know what to expect out of Quintana. They didn't they were already.
They can't have even expected what they got out of Will Crow.
Out of Will Crow.
Dude, he showed up in spring still in the starter mix. So you can't tell me they planned on this and they were like, oh yeah. So Will Crow's going to be a huge part of this bullpen this year.
Right. They scary. It's a scary thought to think that they've actually been fortunate to get a couple people out of this.
Very.
I mean, how bad could it have looked? Look, you want to talk about the pitching staff, and I looked at something, and it kind of blew me away because, we're sitting here and we're talking about, man, this last week has been rough, and the season's been rough, and whatever. But you're talking about a team that, Gary, they've had 56 save opportunities this year. They have 30 saves. I mean, let's start doing the math on just even improving that a little bit and taking. I mean, where do you want to start? Five wins out of that, 5 less losses, 10. It's not that simple. But what I'm trying to say is if you would have just even remotely tried to address some of this or make sure you're doing it next year, that record starts to look a lot better, and it looks like you're making improvement toward a final goal. And guess what? I think most fans would say, okay, we can accept that. But that's where we get to the point where you go into a season trying to do it with almost the bare bones nothing, and this is what it ends up looking like and feeling like.
Yes, because eventually, as you said, the bill does come due. You will have to give those innings. It's going to happen. And it's not a guess.
And it will be a mistake next year to rely if they're going to say, well, we'll get Underwood to eat more innings and we'll get Crow. Look, we don't know how those guys will bounce back after the heavy usage.
I think I said multiple times this year, I didn't really care how Underwood did. This is probably the last year I want him here because I think they have used him up.
Yeah.
And you use a guy up and you can tell. And he's also a guy that he's one of those guys that you almost think needs taken away from Derek Shelton. Like it's his favorite toy. And I don't mean some of the weird situations he's been used in this year because I don't believe that even Derek Shelton wants to use him as a closer. That's just circumstance and terrible choice. But he's proven now countless times this is not a 2 or 3 inning guy. Please stop it. And it's not even because I care about his arm per se. It's because, I'd like to not expose him to multiple trips through a lineup. I don't think he can. I don't think his stuff is good enough to pull that off.
No, and I think under more ideal circumstances, we wouldn't have had to see it as much. But again, that goes back to when you don't have enough options, or even guys you can bring up to spell guys from your minor league system. Yeah. They haven't even had that. They just go looking for scraps.
I mean, they've had a couple that, like they bring up like Eldred. They give him 2 innings. He gives you 2 clean innings. He's gone. He's DFA'd. And it's like, why? Why would we do that? So that we can make sure we go and get this Beasley guy later? Who hasn't thrown an inning? I don't know what you're doing when you're constantly doing that. It doesn't make much sense to me at all. The only guy we pulled up of any merit this year was Yerry De Los Santos.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even on the 40-man. That's how in the plans he was. And I can tell you, Craig and I were both screaming about him last year, so it's not like he just came out of nowhere. We knew he was going to be good.
Yeah, he's not the Luis Ortiz type guy. This just rocket out of nowhere. He should have at least been on the radar. And before we get any further, I do want to get to some things about the bullpen and tell you, this is where it's just sheer negligence on the Pirates' part. Sheer negligence. And you want to talk about why they're one of the worst teams in baseball. I mean, Gary, they have the worst bullpen ERA in baseball, 4.82. They've given up the most hits in baseball. This is their bullpen. They've given up the most earned runs in baseball. They are second in WHIP for walks and hits per innings pitched. Gary, they've walked the most people in baseball. I mean, you just can't let it be that bad, and they purposely almost let it be that bad.
In many ways, they're very fortunate that the offense was this bad this year, because the bullpen would have been even more exposed had they actually had leads to protect half the time. It's been brutal.
Well, it's distracted from how awful they've been.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because most of the time they were garbage innings, so it didn't really matter. And before anybody says it, no, we understand those stats include Diego Castillo and Josh Van Meter.
But every stinky team is doing that.
Dude, every good team is doing that when they're getting blown out. I don't care about those numbers being in there. I'm just saying, don't bother saying it, because they wouldn't rise that much in the ranks even if you took them all away.
Well, there's a reason you're pitching them in the first place.
Yeah.
It's because you don't have enough guys and arms, and you're a hot mess. So it's not it doesn't excuse anything.
No, we should talk about the offense though. We brought it up a little bit.
Yeah.
The offense is a real struggle. I think I have liked what I've seen at the top of the lineup, and I think we're starting to see something that I was anxious to see from Derek Shelton, which is, when he starts to get players, when he starts to get answers, will he finally settle and let them stick? I think we're starting to see that a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, you're talking lineup order.
Yeah.
I'd
love to sit here and tell you that I think that's where some of this improvement's going to come from. And because it should. They're all kids. And we're seeing flashes from them. And I think I'd love to sit here and say O'Neal Cruz is going to be better next year than he is this year. I really think he could be. I'd love to say the same thing about Rodolfo Castro, Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes. God.
I'll take Rodolfo Castro right now. I don't know that he has to get much better, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Definitely with Cruz, but anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Castro needs to just become consistent. That just needs to be a longer sample size before I can say, yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, sure.
But you're right. And I would take O'Neal Cruz just about as he is right now. If that's his max, I guess that's still a good player.
Sure.
It's not as good as I think he can be.
Castro probably got a lot closer to his ceiling already, and we're thinking Cruz has a lot higher of a ceiling, I think. So, yeah.
Right. I think, if anything, Castro has a little more power potential than he's shown. Believe it or not.
Which is interesting.
But regardless, I think, dude, like 2 years ago, I had him as like a 25, 30 home run guy. So I definitely think he can be that.
What is it, 16 homers and 290 some at bats right now in the majors.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's right in that ballpark. And so, yeah, I think there's some improvement there. Scary thing for me, though, I just don't trust this hitting coach. And I just don't know how you go into next year with that. I mean, this is a historically terrible offense, Joe. Historically terrible.
I can hear the angst in your voice as you say that.
I mean, they had that 20 strikeout game the other day, and everybody was rightfully making a huge deal about it. But this team has struck out